So you call this DOJ probe of the Fed a, quote, unprecedented challenge to Fed independence. How, in your view, is this different from pressure that other presidents have applied? LBJ, for example, or President Nixon?
Yeah, look, I think there really is a long history here where presidents have applied pressure to the Fed through various measures. I think in that note I had talked about the historical experience where LBJ and William and Chesney Martin had this kind of dust up around in the 1960s to try to bring rates lower. Obviously, President Trump has pushed for the Fed to cut rates aggressively in recent times. But taking legal action here is the unprecedented aspect of what's happening. I was listening into the conversation that we were all just having. I think initially you did see the bond market respond yesterday.
Yeah.
You saw 10-year yields rising 5 to 6 basis points. The longer end of the curve was moving as well. I just think it was a really important development that Senator Thom Tillis, other Republican senators came out and basically said, look, we are going to block any Fed appointees until this gets resolved. And so I think that opened up potential counterproductive actions here, whether it's the Chair Powell that's staying on or that you won't get more dovish members on the Fed.
And that margin is so thin. I mean, it's the caucus has been together enough that they've been able to uphold the administration's policies. But, when you start getting calls from those donors, from your own portfolio managers saying this is going to have an impact, I think that does move people. Obviously, Tillis is retiring, so he has he's in a swing district, but he's able to go out on this ledge because he doesn't have to run again. But I'm wondering why you think this president is so obsessed with this, especially given recent precedents. I just every time think of Turkey and what happened there. They fired the guy who did the numbers because Erdogan didn't like the numbers. They raised interest rates and then the Turkish lira collapsed. Has no one in this administration, are they not concerned about that?
Yeah, so I think I would think of this through the lens of affordability. It is the number one question for U.S. households. I think it's what's driving elections and kind of political decisions. And I think everything that you see coming out of this administration is focused on that question at this point in time. I think key to affordability in the housing market is viewed interest rates. Now, I think the disconnect is that if the Fed cuts rates aggressively, it does not necessarily mean that the long end of the curve is going to come down as well. It doesn't mean that mortgage rates are going to come down as well. In fact, every time that we've seen an attack on the Fed, including yesterday, the long end rates typically rise, mortgage rates rise. And I think that's where it becomes kind of counterproductive for the administration.